Welcome to Satsang.
Hello, Vishrant. Can you please talk about the topic going with the flow?
So if someone's going with the flow, they're in acceptance of life as it is. They're not resisting, they're not contracting, they're not defending, they're in flow. And this is a very beautiful way to live in flow. The opposite of it is contraction and resistance, which is just suffering. And so if we're looking at developing a life that is equanimous, we've got to look at what takes us out of flow, what puts us into resistance. What is it that is the obstacle to flow? Because a mind that is supporting flow is a mind that is relaxed, and a relaxed mind supports higher consciousness. A relaxed mind is the right kind of mind to develop. If we just look at, well, what makes us happy? And we go, well, if we're in resistance, we're not happy. If we're contracting, we're not happy. If we're defending, we're not happy. When are we actually happy? And if we really examine it, we'll find that we're happy when we're in flow, when we're not resisting, when we're in a state of let go. And so if you're really interested in raising your consciousness levels, you practice acceptance and let go. You practice moving towards a continuous flow in life rather than an up and down mixture of flow and contraction. Life becomes very beautiful when we let go, when we stop trying to resistantly control our environment. It becomes very, very sweet. But only you can do that. And most people have not been programmed to do that. Most people have been programmed just to resist, contract, defend, survive, and suffer. And really, we don't need to. If we're willing to let go and go into flow, life is beautiful. You're responsible for how you think. You're responsible for your mind. Only you can create a situation of flow. Nobody can do it for you because the world is hard for everybody. There's plenty of things that you can resist. There's plenty of things you can track to. There's plenty of things that'll make you feel like defending yourself. But only you can keep you open. Nobody else can do that for you. You're responsible for the way you think. And so training the mind to let go, training the mind to accept life as it is something that you do for you. It makes your life better. You watch people who are suffering. You watch them closely, and you'll see that they're in resistance. You'll see. Everybody has troubles, but some people don't resist. They just okay it. They don't suffer. From my perspective, suffering is a choice. But there is a funny thing in that you actually have to be conscious of that choice. You have to be conscious enough to see that you don't need to resist life, that you can accept life, that you can let go, and still be effective as a human being in the world. Practice and see. It's the only thing that's going to change default patterns is practice. Practice and see. Any questions? Any statements? Any challenges to this teaching today?
The first question is as follows. Does going with the flow mean allowing my mind to do whatever it wants?
Heck no. If the mind does whatever it wants, it's going to start resisting life, start contracting, start defending itself, because that's what it's been programmed to do. You've got to teach it not to do that. And you teach it not to do that by letting go and by accepting. And this is a discipline that you apply to the mind to teach it a new default pattern, a new way of living in the world. If you don't teach the mind to let go, if you don't teach it to accept life, well, nothing's going to change. The mind itself, if you watch it, if you just witness it, you'll see how it creates suffering for you. And in the witnessing, you don't want to be involved anymore. So just start looking at the mind, watching it, seeing what it's really doing, rather than believing whatever story it's telling itself. Just witness it, and you'll see.
It seems to me that most people aren't interested in hearing that suffering is a choice. Why would this be the case?
Because most people think it's not a choice. They actually think that they do suffer and that it's at the hands of something else besides themselves. Mind you, you're the only one that can supply resistance to what is. Something bad can happen, something negative can happen, but you're the one that can accept it or resist it. Therefore, it's your choice. You make a decision. If you become conscious enough, you choose not to resist. You choose to accept life as it is. That does not make you an ineffective human being. It just means that everything you'll do will be from a place of openness rather than a place of closure.
So, what would going with the flow look like in a person?
Well, what it wouldn't look like is probably a better way to put it. It wouldn't look like they were suffering. It wouldn't look that way. It would actually look like they were cool, calm, relaxed. It would look like they were happy. Suffering doesn't look that way.
Next question. How do you stay in flow once you notice all the suffering that occurs in the world, like the poverty, murders, wars, greed, etc.?
Well, it's a choice whether you contract against those things or you don't. This has always been the case. The world has always had tragedy in it. It's always had poverty in it. It's how it is. Now you can contract against that or not, or you can stay open. Doesn't mean that you don't have empathy and compassion for those who are suffering. It just means that you're open and you're not in resistance. It means you're still in flow. We don't have to close. We can remain open.
It seems that some people use going with the flow as an excuse for not taking any action in their lives. How is this different from really going with the flow as you're talking about it?
You don't have to take action in your life if you don't want to. That's your choice. I don't see it that way. I see that you can actually go with the flow and make a difference on the planet. You can be in acceptance of life and still put up a protest if you need to, but from a place of acceptance and openness. The moment we close, there is a chance we might get angry, and that's a form of violence. We don't need to go there. We can actually change things without being angry. We can change things from openness. We can change things from a place of acceptance. Or do nothing, but that's your own choice. It doesn't matter. What really matters is whether you're raising your consciousness levels. The problem with not accepting life as it is, the problem with resisting life, is usually when we get involved in resistance, we take ourselves into lower consciousness. This whole game here is about higher consciousness, not about lower consciousness. And it's up to you. How are you supporting higher consciousness, or are you supporting lower consciousness? And of course the question, what do you really want?
Sometimes, to make things happen, it feels like I become forceful, pushing against the current. How can I get things done in a state of flow?
By relaxing inside. And the only way we can truly be relaxed inside is if we're in acceptance of what is. The moment we move to non-acceptance of anything, we are no longer relaxed inside. Life's the way it is. It's neither good nor bad. It really just is the way it is. We can judge it as good, we can judge it as bad and get caught in the story, or not. It's not going to, getting caught in the story isn't going to change anything. If you want to change something, you do something. You do something about it. But you can do something about anything from a place of openness. We don't actually have to be closed. We don't have to be lost. We can be wide open and make a difference. Up to you.
After meditating, or after satsang sometimes, I have no motivation to do anything because I'm peaceful. Is it possible for me to find this motivation to do things without using force and resistance?
People ask these questions. Life is so cool if you just let go. So you find all this peace after satsang or after meditating? Sure, because you're actually quietening the mind. You're teaching it how to relax. Why don't you just continue to teach it how to relax? Why do you have to stop? Why do you have to go back to resistant patterns and lose the beauty that you find in meditation, the beauty that you find in satsang? Because only you can create a disruption, really. The world is just the way the world is. Your reaction to the world is what creates the problem. Learn to relax your mind. Learn to be cool. And we learn to be cool by the practice of acceptance and let go. What do you practice? Because whatever you practice, you're going to be good at.
You were talking about supporting higher or lower consciousness. I tend to be result orientated, and I find this takes me into lower consciousness. Do I have to remove this result orientation, or is there another way to be more conscious?
Result orientation is a dream of the future. It's not real. And as long as we have our awareness on a dream, we're not very conscious at all. We may be conscious of the dream, but we're not conscious of reality. We're actually dreaming. And so there's nothing wrong with having goals in life, but actually being goal orientated, where you're constantly thinking about the goal, that's just another dream. It's not a reality. And of course, it's a dream that involves a certain level of suffering because there will be the hope that the goal is achieved. But on the other side of that, there'll be the fear that it won't. And so you're living in a bit of a nightmare type dream. It's best just to be present to what is, to be here now with what's real. There's nothing real about what you think. You want to go into flow, you don't go into flow dreaming. You go into flow when you're out of dreaming, when you're just here, in reality, in nature, without resistance, when you're natural. Practice that.
When I'm able to find silence and stillness, I feel really peaceful. But the moment things don't go my way, I lose that peace. How do I keep my awareness on the silence and stillness when things are going wrong?
There's only one way, it's if you've practiced at acceptance. There is no other way. If you're not practiced at acceptance, of course you're going to lose it, which comes back to what are you practiced at? It's that simple. What are you practiced at? No amount of intellectual understanding will help you. You can know all this stuff to your marrow. It won't help you. What changes our default patterns is practice. If you're practiced at being open, if you're practiced at being accepting, if you're practiced at let go, you will be good at it, even when you're under stress. But if you are not practiced at that, why would you be good at it? It doesn't work that way. It works because you practice it. You want to be in flow, practice being in flow. And of course, the best time to practice is when we are under fire, when things aren't going our way. That's when we can practice acceptance. That's when we can practice let go. So don't see the world as negative. See it as opportunities to practice something that can bring you peace.
The Taoists talk about following the path of least resistance. Is that something that you consciously practiced?
Once upon a time, until it became my habit, you see, if we practice meditation long enough, we'll become very present by default nature. If we practice mindfulness often enough, we'll become present to reality because we've practiced it. If we practice openness enough, it becomes our default nature. Whatever we practice is going to be our default nature. And so I'm open. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. All the time. But not because I'm doing anything. It's just a default pattern that's been trained into me through practice. I cannot see any point in resisting life because I'm just not into my own suffering.
Sometimes you say that tolerating is still resisting. How do I switch from tolerating a situation to warmly welcoming it?
Well, of course, tolerating is resisting. It's waiting for it to be different. You're in a dream. You're not even present to reality. You're dreaming. You're tolerating. You're waiting for something to change rather than being with what is. You're dreaming. And in that dream, you're resisting. You're tolerating. Of course, it's resistance. And it's a nasty dream. How long do you tolerate before it becomes intolerable rather than just accepting it as it is?
It seems that in being human, there is an ever flowing stream of emotions, ups and downs, which may appear to be chaotic at times. What does one need to do to not get caught in emotionality?
Emotions are just part of the human psyche. They allow us to let things go. Crying is the great healer. But if you're really interested in not getting caught, because you've got to remember emotions are still part of the mind, same as thoughts, develop a silent witness that just watches. And then you find yourself detached from everything. It's like you're watching someone else's mind. And because you're watching, you don't get caught in it. So a lot of emotionality actually disappears because you're not caught in the mind. You're not caught in its stories anymore. You really want to get free. Develop a silent witness that simply watches the mind.
I know that you were a martial artist. The Shaolin monks practice martial arts. Do you think martial arts helps a seeker towards going with the flow and to higher consciousness?
Look, any discipline that involves surrender, that involves acceptance, that involves non-resistance is great for raising consciousness levels. In martial arts, I learned how to die because if you go into a bout, if you go into full contact training with fear of death, you've already handicapped yourself. You have to go in a space of let go so you can be there 100%. And so martial arts trained me to let go, trained me to let go of dying, trained me to let go of being hurt. Because if I entertained those thoughts, I would handicap myself in the game. First of all, those thoughts are dreams. They're not real, which means if I'm entertaining them, I'm not even present to what's going on. And so martial arts really is a discipline that can enable you to learn let go, can enable you to learn acceptance and surrender. And I definitely used it for that.
So, in regards to learning how to die, are there ways of learning how to die without putting myself in physical danger?
Well, that would be best, wouldn't it? Because if you put yourself in physical danger, you might die.
Yeah.
But you got to understand what meditation is. Meditation is simply being aware of what is real all the time. Now, what is not real is your mind's story, your mind's thoughts. They're not real. And so if you're in formal meditation and you're watching the breath and a thought comes in and you abandon it and come back to the breath, you're actually practicing dying. You're practicing dying to the thoughts. But that's going to be up to you. What do you practice? You see, I fell in love with meditation. I fell in love with present moment awareness because it's real. There's nothing real about what you think. And because we've all been programmed to be problem solvers, that's where most people live, in their heads solving problems. To me, that's a nightmare. What about just being present to reality? Just being here. That's really, really nice. But it takes practice again because we went to school, a lot of us for 12 years, and then some people went on to further education at universities and TAFEs. And we learnt to live in our heads so we could solve problems, so we could get a certificate on the wall saying we could do such and such. Unfortunately, most people never recover from the dream that they've been put in. They end up problem solving until they die. The practice of meditation is really the practice of reclaiming reality from the dream that you're lost in. Up to you.
Does the practice of self-inquiry when I get caught help with learning let go and being in flow?
Does the practice of self-inquiry when I get caught help? Why would you be practicing self-inquiry when you're caught? I'm sorry, but that question doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. It sounds like you're using the practice of self-inquiry to avoid things. That's not the go. Self-inquiry is to turn awareness onto itself to discover your true nature. It's not to be used to avoid life. The same as meditation. Getting present to reality is not a way of avoiding real life. Even if it's being used for that, it's being used incorrectly.
To meditate properly, I feel that I need the perfect conditions around me. Is that because I'm not practiced enough, or am I practicing the wrong way?
Right now is always the perfect condition to be present to reality. Right now is always the right time to be present to reality. This is the perfect condition to be present to reality. Right here, right now.
I notice there is a lot of peace in letting go, but why do I forget that so often?
Yeah, people, they get insights and then they forget because they're dreaming. And the dream seems so real and so important that you forget other things. Most people who are dreaming don't realize they're even dreaming. They just think this is ordinary, this is normal. Well, it probably is for them. But when you get present and you stay present, dreaming becomes abhorrent because it's not real. This present moment is very beautiful. Things are very beautiful. It's a bit like being a little kid again in wonderment because you're here and you're enjoying the here and you're enjoying the now. You're not locked in some dream about wanting something later or regretting something from before. You're here. You're in this moment. Up to you. It's really up to you. You're the one that's going to either meditate and practice mindfulness and get back to reality or continue dreaming. Nobody's going to help you. It's totally up to you.
I prefer being in nature or in a quiet hall to meditate in. When you say right now is the perfect condition, what do you mean?
Meditation needs to be every moment. Meditation simply means being aware of what is real. The only thing that is not real is what you think. Meditation is being here all the time. And when you were a little kid, up to probably about the age of 4 or 5, you were pretty much present every moment. And then you went to school and you learned how to live in your head. It's very beautiful to be present every moment. It's lovely. And if we're looking at enlightenment, being, well, awareness aware of itself, well, that's being present to reality. Something can appear in it, but present to reality is beautiful. What do you want? Do you want higher consciousness or do you want lower consciousness? Keep dreaming, lower consciousness. You go to higher consciousness, you start moving more into the moment, more into reality, away from the dream, because the dream is lower consciousness, and everything you think is dream.
I understand that meditation is to be present every moment, but do you think it is useful to take some time out to do formal meditations or go on meditation retreats?
If you haven't, if you're a dreamer, yes. If you're not practiced at being present, yes. If you practiced at being present, well, you practiced at being present. It's like asking the question, should I stop banging my head against the wall? Yes, you should. Of course, meditate. Do formal sessions. Go on retreats. Do whatever it takes to reclaim reality from the dream that you're in. Whatever works. Be pragmatic. Up to you.
In practicing mindfulness, I've started to notice that everything comes and goes. Can this observation help me learn to be more in flow and become more content?
Not really. The only thing that helps you be in flow is acceptance and let go. Understanding doesn't really help. You'd think it would, but it doesn't. Because basically, if we have to understand, it means we have to contract and then let go. If we're truly in flow, we're not letting go, we're already let go. Practice acceptance, practice let go. That works. You can listen to me about let go, you can listen to me convince you to let go, but that won't help unless you practice.
I've heard you say that we need a strong ego to be able to wake up. Could you please explain what you mean by this?
This is a question off subject. Doesn't have a great deal to do with flow. Must be running out of questions, Tosh.
No, I've got a fair few. I might have chosen the wrong one.
Uh-huh. Maybe a different day's subject or something. It just doesn't seem to be congruent with what we're talking about.
Okay, would you like a different question?
Look, the answer to every question is meditation, but yeah, I'll have another question.
So, with flow, does there need to be an internal welcoming to all experiences?
Well, we look at how do we accept life? How do we actually practice acceptance? And from my perspective, it is an openness to what is, an openness to whatever's appearing, rather than a closure or a resistance. And so, yeah, we need to practice, need to continue to practice. But you can warmly welcome, that works. But that's also a practice, isn't it? Whatever appears, you make okay. You don't resist anything. This is the way to live. This is the way to live beautifully.
Is going with the flow the same as being in touch with your intuition?
Not really. Being in touch with your intuition, you could still be closed. You could still be in resistance to some degree. I don't think they match up that well. Being in flow just means that you're open no matter what is happening. It's a way of life. It's a way of living. As a matter of fact, it's the way of the heart. Because when we're in flow, when we're open, when we're not resisting life, when we're present to reality, heart becomes very prevalent. And the beauty of heart becomes very prevalent in that openness, in that non-resistant state. And so openness that's created by acceptance of life and let go creates the right environment for people to perceive love. Very beautiful.
Can a person be in a state of flow and still be in masculine or in yang energy?
Not really. When we look at different energies, yang energy is outgoing. It tends to be resistant. Yin energy is more of that receptive type of energy, and that facilitates flow way better because there's no resistance in it. And so if we really want to be in flow, we need to embrace the feminine. We need to embrace yin. And embracing yin, we're also embracing the way of the heart. It's very beautiful, very lovely to do so. But it's against our survival mechanism. It's against our nature to do so. We're programmed to survive. We're programmed to resist. We're programmed to contract. We're programmed to defend. And so somebody who has got to a level where they're not resisting life, where they're in a state of flow, has done a great deal of work on themselves to remove the obstacles that are in the way. And more than likely, you'll find that these people are happy to a large degree because they're not creating suffering for themselves.
I noticed that young kids are usually naturally in a state of flow. Why do we lose this as we become adults?
I don't know if that's actually true about young kids being in a state of flow too all the time, because they go into resistance, they get defended, they're learning how to be adults. Someone who's in a state of flow all the time is someone who's actually really practiced at it, someone who's practiced at acceptance, someone who's practiced at let go. Little kids don't really practice that. They're just not aware of everything yet. They're not programmed badly enough yet. You try being present to reality for a while. Try meditating and being present to reality for a while. And then see what contracts you. And anything that contracts you will probably have a belief system attached to it. Remove the belief system and be free. I find that most belief systems are prisons. That brings us back to the subject of true rebellion. When you start challenging your own belief systems, you're rebelling against your own mind. This is the true rebellion. It's not against the world. It's not against a government or a policy. It's against your own mind, because that's where suffering begins and ends. You create it by your resistance to life. By rebelling against your mind and removing the belief systems that create contraction in you, or disempowering them, you are winning. Because if you contract and you create suffering in yourself, you have lost. You've been defeated by your own mind. Rebel. Examine your mind. Stop believing it. Examine it.
I've heard it said that if you just go with the flow, everything will work itself out. Do you think this is true?
I don't know. Go with the flow and find out. When you say work out, of course everything works out. Whether it works out the way you want or not, that's another story. I don't know the answer to that question.
I've heard some teachers say that everything is a part of and an expression of flow or a divine intelligence. Do you agree with this?
I really don't know. See, people want to know because they want to be able to control. They want to understand so they can control their environment. I really don't know. I don't have this need to control my environment. It's all okay. I don't need to know. I'm I'm absolutely okay with not knowing. That way I can stay present to reality, not knowing in wonderment. It's quite nice. Have a look at why you need to know. What is this all about? Why do you need to know? The only thing that you really need to know is that surrender is the answer. And if you practice it, you get good at it. You don't need to know anything else. But people want to know this, they want to know that. They want to be able to control everything because they don't like the chaos that we live in. But the truth is, everything is chaos. We don't really know what's going to happen next. We might be able to guess, but we don't know. We don't know when we're going to die. We don't know when we're going to get sick. We don't know when we're going to have accidents. We don't know when our family are going to suffer. We don't know. There's so many things we don't know, but we try to know. We try to control everything. It's okay. Chaos is actually okay. If you can be okay with chaos, you can be relaxed. And the world is chaotic. Your controlling it is creating tension in you.
The Taoist teaching of instead of moving against life, letting life move through you sounds lovely, but I find it very difficult to do. How do I get to this point of letting life move through me?
Well, the moment you stop resisting, then life just moves through you. Life moves through you anyway, but most people don't experience that. They experience their resistance because it shows up. Life is a flow. Birth, life, death, chaos. It's all a flow. The moment you resist, you kind of in your mind step into a stuck place. But really it just keeps flowing anyway. It's not like you can stop it. The chaos continues. And if you can be okay with that, you can be rested inside yourself.
The following question has been written by a viewer. Can openness and going with the flow make us vulnerable to manipulation by others whose motives may not be good?
Possibly. You know, you can be wide open with people. It doesn't necessarily mean you're gullible or naive. You can be open, you can be accepting, you can be loving. You don't have to be ripped off because you're being gullible. You can still say no from openness. This idea that people think, well, if I accept, I've given up. No, you've just accepted. You're practicing openness now. Of course, there's dishonest people in the world. It's the world we live in. So what? You don't have to be ripped off by them. Being vulnerable is very beautiful. Doesn't mean you have to be ripped off. As a matter of fact, being vulnerable is the way of the heart. It's up to you.
I think I have an unconscious assumption that responding to stressful situations with stress is an appropriate and productive response, the opposite of flow. How do I change this habit?
Well, it's the same way we change any habit. You do something different than what you've been doing. We developed our habits through practice. That's how we developed them, by doing them over and over and over again until they became default patterns. If we want to reverse a habit or change a habit, we have to do something different than that habit for long enough until there's a new habit. So it's up to you. Whatever you practice, you will be good at. You want to be free, practice openness.
Does being in flow also mean treating others kindly, being caring and generous?
Look, if you practice openness, you'll find your heart. And when you find your heart, you will be kind and you will be loving and you will be caring, because that's how the heart affects the mind. That's how love affects the mind. You want to be those things. You can be fraudulent in those things. You can just do it from the mind without heart. But when you do it from heart, it's genuine. You just want to take care of people. You just want to be kind to people. You just want to be generous. This is the beauty of heart. This is the beauty of love. Love is really the true jewel of consciousness. And in flow, we find it. In contraction and defendedness, we do not. When we're resisting life, there's not much love around. Not being perceived, at least. You want to perceive love, you live vulnerably and open. This is the way.
The Tao Te Ching states, that which offers no resistance overcomes the hardest substances. That which offers no resistance can enter where there is no space. It sounds like it is referring to being in flow. What is it that offers no resistance?
In a state of let go, everything comes in. When we offer resistance, we're putting up a force that blocks everything. You want to live in yin, you want to live in vulnerability. You don't offer resistance. You let everything go, you relax your mind. This is a very beautiful way to live, because this supports heart. It supports a beautiful way of living. If all we do is operate from yang, which is that outgoing, powerful energy, life is missing the subtleties. It's missing the beauty. It's missing the softness, the gentleness. It's missing the receptivity. I love the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu's book. I love Taoism. It's very beautiful. How it puts the different ways of being in the world. If you're truly interested in the way of the heart, which I feel Buddhism is about, embracing the yin is the way. Becoming open, becoming vulnerable is the way. Allowing yourself to perceive more love is the way. And instead of becoming more than, you as an I become less than. This is the way to higher consciousness.
Why and how do you see perfection in everything?
In Satori, in deep Satori, there is nothing but perfection upon perfection upon perfection. Come back out here with your awareness and move to the mind and all its judgments, and you see fault. You don't see the perfection because you're looking through the filters of the mind. You're not looking to see that everything is perfect because the filters of the mind are such that they make it look like it is not. Beyond the mind, pure beingness, perfection upon perfection upon perfection is actually reality. There are no mistakes. Everything that happens is meant to happen the way it is. Otherwise, it would never have happened.
How can I facilitate love to flow through me?
Get rid of you. There's only one thing that blocks people from perceiving love, and that's them. Love is always here. But your closure, your defendedness, keeps you from not perceiving it. You want to find love in your life, open up. Be vulnerable. Live in the world in a vulnerable, open way, accepting what is. And then there's love everywhere, because it's always here. If you're not perceiving it, it's probably because you're too closed. That's all. Somehow you've got a defense running somewhere, unconscious or conscious. Up to you. You're responsible for you. You're responsible for your openness. You're responsible for your closure. You're responsible for your defendedness. Up to you.
The next question has been asked by Jessica on Facebook, who writes, is going to uni to study environmental science and management in order to stop and reverse destruction of life, resisting reality?
There's nothing wrong with going to university to study environmental science so you can help this be a better place. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But can you do it from a place of openness, or are you going to close up and do it from a place of closure that is resistance itself? Because there is enough darkness on this planet already without you going into more resistance. Look at it. We don't need more resistance. We don't need more darkness. We need more light. In openness, we are light. In resistance, we're just more darkness. And there's enough of that on the planet already. Operate from a place of openness and you find heart. And then you take care of the planet from a place of heart, a place of loving, not a place of disturbance, of resistance, of defendedness, but from a place of love. There's nothing wrong with going to educate yourself in a way that will help the planet. That's brilliant. But can you do it from a place of love rather than a place of anger or a place of business? Can you do it from a place of wide openness, vulnerability, and love? Because that's going to have a very different message in it.
So, are you saying that where we are coming from is always more important than what we are doing externally?
Exactly, that's exactly what I'm saying. Two people can do the same thing. One can do it from love and the other can do it from closure and a form of internal violence. It's like the sea shepherds out there trying to protect the oceans from all sorts of different things. But are the crew doing it from a place of love of the ocean and love for everybody, or are they doing it from a place of closure, defendedness, vengeance? Our attitude is what's going to make the difference. The last thing this planet needs is more violence. And every time we close and go defended, we're preparing ourselves for violence. Practice openness. It supports heart. And we can do everything from openness. We can change the world if we want from a place of openness, from a place of heart, from a place of light. Because heart is really true light.
What do you mean when you talk about bringing the light and the darkness into the world?
That's a subject. That's a big subject. Every time we go into dream, we're going into darkness. Really. Because we're going into dream. It's not real. Every time we go into love, by practicing openness, we're going into light. Because it's a vibration. I call it light, but it's just a vibration. But it's a vibration of beauty. Closeness, resistance, anger, these aren't beautiful. As a matter of fact, anger is violence. We are not going to save the world through violence. The only thing that can save this planet is higher consciousness. And higher consciousness dictates that you be open. Closure keeps you locked in lower consciousness. Thank you for Satsang. Good to see you brave hearts here today.